I'd like to call to order the February 2nd, 2016 meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Everybody please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Board Secretary, has this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act?
Yes, it has, Mr.
How about a roll call then?
Mr. Bowker.
Here.
Mrs. Backo.
Here.
Mr. Bashada.
Here.
Mrs. Bloom.
Here.
Mr. Sayak.
Here.
Mrs. DePinto.
Here.
Mr. Esposito.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
And Mr. McEnroe.
I am present. I need a motion to go into executive.
So moved.
Second the motion. Okay, I got a motion second. Can you please read the resolution?
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Borough of Sayreville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of any action upon the hereinafter specified subject matter. General nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, negotiations, salary anomalies, and attorney-client privilege, health benefits. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately. Mr. Bowker.
Yes.
Mrs. Backo.
Yes.
Mr. Bashada.
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom.
Yes.
Mr. Sayak.
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
And Mr. McEnroe.
Yes, the board will go into executive session, reconvene in public at 7:30. We are starting our meeting this evening, but I'd like to call to order the February 2nd, 2016 meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Mr. Board Secretary, has this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act?
Yes, it has, Mr. McEnroe.
Everybody please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Get a roll call, please.
Mr. Bowker.
Here.
Mrs. Backo.
Here.
Mr. Bashada.
Here.
Mrs. Bloom.
Here.
Mr. Sayak.
Here.
Mrs. DePinto.
Here.
Mr. Esposito.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mr. McEnroe.
Can you please synopsize their executive session?
This evening in executive session, the board discussed under personnel included but not limited to agenda items, negotiations, the salary anomalies, attorney-client privilege, health benefits.
Thank you. Dr. Lambert, this time we have a presentation. We'd like to recognize some of our students in the arts.
Absolutely. But before we do, I know that last week we missed district highlights, and I know Mrs. Proudman prepared some highlights for Mrs. Backo. We do have highlights. Audience members that are there for handouts. Do you mind if Mrs. Backo reads those?
Not at all. She likes to read.
Thank you. She made them just for you.
That's right. They're special for me. Arlet School students were given the opportunity to explore the role of being principal for a day. Lucky winners were randomly selected from a raffle, and a winner was selected from each grade level. They were delighted to spend some time with Mr. Preston. The students were treated to a lunch with Mr. Preston and received a commemorative T-shirt to celebrate the role of being principal for a day. This big day coincided with Emma Arlett's birthday celebration. On January 15th, the Sayreville Education Association hosted an Everyday Heroes tribute. This event was held in the auditorium of Wilson School and was provided by the Wilson School second grade students and teachers. Several police officers and dispatchers were in attendance and were presented with letters honoring them as everyday heroes. Each letter included a hero silicone bracelet as a special gift. We are delighted to inform you that the 74 Sayreville War Memorial High School DECA students attended the New Jersey DECA Regional Competition on January 7th and won a total of 60 awards in business and technical events. These students are now eligible to compete at the New Jersey State competitions in February 2016. The list of names can be found in the head of the class newsletter and on the printed district highlights.
I told you she reads well.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bloom?
We have a couple of presentations today. Our principals here are here to present their budgets, but before we do so, we want to recognize some incredibly special and amazing people. If you remember, a couple of months ago, we had our band here, and we recognized our band for being state champions and region champions. And they truly are amazing at their performing arts. But there, as we all know, are other arts. And we are so proud of all of our visual arts students. In fact, we have some incredibly talented and wonderful visual arts students with their very exceptional teacher today, Mrs. Moises. And I asked Mrs. Moises to come join Mrs. Bloom, who has a background in art, I must say, so that we can recognize these incredibly talented young men and women with their families tonight for all of their incredible work that they've done in visual arts. Ms. Moises?
Congratulations, Catherine, and congratulations to all our budding artists. It's close to my heart. If you don't know, I taught art in this building for 17 years, so art is my love. It still keeps me happy when I'm not babysitting, which is most of the time. So we're going to bring the students up, and Mrs. Moisage is going to read your names so that I don't make any mistakes.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us tonight. 8 jewelry and metalworking students were chosen to have their work displayed in the Sally D. Francisco Gallery at Peters Valley School of Craft and Art. The exhibition is up until February 14th. This exhibition provides students with the opportunity to display and sell their work in a professional gallery setting. The opening was a couple of weeks ago. You know, some of our students were able to make it. A few came a few days ago, and I'm incredibly proud of these kids and any opportunity to show their work, and I see it being displayed on the screen, and I'm happy to share that with you. And unfortunately, 2 of the kids couldn't make it tonight, but 6 of them are here this evening, and I'm just going to call everybody's name alphabetically. So let's start with Rhapsody Blake. Come on up. Oh, okay. We also have with us Eloy Correa. Nicole Gajelchuk. Nicole Maciejacka. Jessica Sarika. Jonathan Tejada. And the 2 students who couldn't make it tonight, Asmata Perez and Keith Scott. Okay, thank
Okay, and as we know, we are in the midst of budget season. And as you can see from our budget calendar, today is February 2nd, and today our esteemed principals are here to present their budgets for you, their proposed 2016-17 discretionary supply budgets. And I do realize that there is a big basketball game going on, and I know Mr. Brown is dying to get over there, so we're going to give him the honor of going first. And I know that he has some of his vice principals here as well to support him. Mr. Brown?
Thank you. Good evening. There's only a dozen items. If you turn to the budget proposal, the comparison, what I tried to do is highlight each of the areas that showed an increase and the reason for that increase in the notes section. So obviously the first three, not a real big deal. The rentals are the reason for increase is really fixed cost. That's our copy machines, water coolers, et cetera. The big addition in the next line item, the 240, 600, is $3,500 for the videotaping. Last year, that came out of the technology budget. This year, it's in this area. The 800 is down. The 420,031 there, 261, 420. You know, when I looked at this, we're up quite a bit of money, but $15,000 of that money goes to just cleaning uniforms and instrument repair. So just those two items alone account for about $15,000 of our budget of $38,500. So it is significant, but those are costs associated that we really don't have a lot of choice in. When you go down to the general supply, you'll see a number of items. We are unfortunately required to, with copyrighted music, we spend over $13,000 for music, $8,000 in the choral area and another $5,000 in the band area just for our music. That's before we begin anything. You got band supplies, art is up, and we're obviously very successful at that. Couple of other items that were significant that weren't in there last year and account for a lot of the increase. $3,300 in batteries and another $7,500 or $7,200 in calculators. Got $10,000 worth of that equipment, which we cut last year. We added on to this year's budget. And then $15,000 for new instruments. So you'll see that the budgets are fairly flat, but these items are increased needs, I guess you'd say. You go to the next page. The other objects is fairly flat. The textbooks, I believe Dr. Shediak went over that with you, and there's one number that I didn't include there is $87,000 in the new math series, $100,000 in the new science series, and another $37,000 in the language arts. There are three big ticket items for us. The last item of consequence, again, with a fairly big increase, is the co-curricular supply, and $8,000 of that $95,000 deals with band issues in terms of a rack system that they wanted for transporting their electronics, additional uniforms, and electronic sound system. So the budget itself is fairly, I think fairly flat. A couple of areas. Questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
The calculators. I understood calculators were a problem this year, so that we were purchasing them this year out of this budget. Is that not
Okay.
correct?
Calculators are a problem depending on who you speak to. You know, Mr. Trovasato wants to have an extra set for everyone, that's fine.
Right, but I understand that it wasn't in this year's budget, but we were using this year's budget money to buy calculators. Is this $7,200
No, we bought-
additional?
We bought calculators last year. We split them. He wanted more. It was the $56,000, if I remember right,
Right,
last
but
year.
I understood that we were short for the 15, this 16.
This should get
this
us
year.
to where we need to be. This year's.
Right, but did you receive any calculators
I don't,
recently? Do you know?
recently? No, not that I know of.
No, didn't we?
I didn't talk to Joe about it, Dr. Trevisano about it.
I thought we purchased calculators very recently.
Not to my knowledge. I know we talked about, because we did hear a concern expressed to us about a particular classroom.
We were using classroom sets.
Right. In which kids couldn't take those calculators home.
Right, so I thought we were rectifying that problem this year.
I don't believe we talked about rectifying it this year. I thought we talked about rectifying in the budget coming up.
That wasn't how I understood it. Okay.
Every time we buy them, it's a step closer. I mean, again, when we proposed $56,000, a lot of money last year, so if we do it in a 3-year or a 4-year plan, keep recycling them. They go out of date anyway.
Right, but I think it's important that kids have the calculators that they need in the
Absolutely. Absolutely, no doubt. I'll take them. If you want to get them all, we'll get them all.
I always want calculators.
Anything else?
I will make a comment with regard to the band. I had a chance to meet with Dr. Caruso a couple of months ago, and he did express to me the concern with regard to the replacement of instruments and the repair of instruments. I don't know if we're aware, I mean, some of our performers on the band, they go to performances with duct tape on tubas and so forth. And, you know, a misconception that people might have is that our kids in our band, they may have their own personal instruments, but they don't take those outside to compete with, as obviously those are going to get ruined. So they rely a lot on us to provide them with instruments. Very important for them. And they're not asking for a great deal more, but they are asking for a little bit more each year so that they can begin to repair and replace those instruments. And I will say that we have more and more kids participating in the band, and our band has been performing at an outstanding level, and I do certainly believe that an increase in supplies for them to replace and repair instruments is worthy.
And when they buy a tuba or a saxophone, they're $2,000-3,000
Yeah.
each. It's not like they're buying a dozen of them, they're getting three, you know, for 15 or four for $15,000.
Listen, I agree, bands are expensive, okay? I mean, we knew that going in. We build a brand-new multi-million-dollar music studio here. We should buy instruments and clean uniforms. Didn't we recently purchase, not a couple of years ago?
Last year, we got
uniforms?
Uniforms, yes.
$35,000 for uniforms, yes.
And they've seen some success.
Absolutely.
Money well spent, I think.
We got 100 kids, they're all happy.
Bring me 200, we'll
There
spend
you
more.
go. All set?
Thank you,
guys.
sir.
All right.
And thank you to your administrative team. And now I'd like to call up Mrs. McCubic from the middle school. I think I just asked.
This is tall. Which one?
Either one. Jerry, you're more comfortable with.
Okay, good evening. I think I can clear up the calculator issue. Those calculators that he needed were, actually went to the middle school. They were not budgeted for this year, but we needed them. So Dr. Schifazano, I believe in August, put that together, and I know the middle school got a substantial amount of calculators. So I think it was to accommodate the Algebra 1 curriculum in the 8th grade for some graphing calculators. So I'm not sure if
No,
that's the
there was
same
no
funds.
confusion, it was the high school.
Okay, sorry. All right, so the middle school budget. As you'll see overall, I really looked at our accounts and was able to cut the entire operating budget there by $52,160. There was, I'll start at the top, and there's an anomaly in the middle that I'll explain in a moment. Supplies and materials, we're able to decrease that by $14,314, mostly because we've been relying very much on technology. The Chrome carts that we got a couple years ago and the availability of them has made a major difference in the amount of consumables that we've needed. So that was an area that we were able to cut quite a bit. In terms of textbooks, as you could see from 2015, we purchased a lot of textbooks in a lot of areas, and that had to do with the revisions with Common Core and things. So now we are down to $32,000 for this year, which is a $49,000 savings prior. We did a substantial mathematics purchase last year, so we're able to do that, and a lot of what we're talking about right now in the textbook line is for science with the change in the Common Core for the new generation science standards. So we need to get some supplemental materials there to go with the textbooks that we had purchased, and also textbooks for some shifting enrollments from grade to grade. Administrative supplies is up by $4,000. I'm not redecorating. People don't realize sometimes that out of administrative supplies also comes items for student awards and things like that. We had quite a bit of student award plaques and certificates for quite a few many years stockpiled in our safe. We are finally out of those. They actually couldn't be run through the computer. So that's really what we're looking for with that increase in that money. Also, we went down last year, and we really just utilized all the surplus supplies we had left, so we're back at a regular point of the 15,000 to look to fill that gap. Rentals, rentals now include the videotaping of commencement, so hence that's why that number is a little bit higher, as well as we want to add additional water coolers, one for the nurse's office for student medication, things like that. The next one would be library supplies. I have flat funding listed. It's only a $35 difference. I just rounded up. And basically, it's to do the periodicals for the library, new novels for the kids, things like that. Other objects. This is where I made a typo in the SMARTS program. It should have been $26,000. I accidentally hit an 8. So I have it listed in your budget proposal as $86,000. In reality, it is $26,000. So it would be flat funding, not a $60,000 increase.
We've already cut $60,000.
So, oops, not a great typist, am I? So that's where we are with that. That's flat funding there. And then we have health office supplies. We really tend to overexpend our budget line every year in health office supplies. We have more and more kids that are in need of just basic medical type supplies and daily hygiene-related supplies, so we do need to up that number a bit. So that's a $794 increase. Other objects, commencement, that has to do with new commencement awards. Again, we're out of the other types of awards that we had before. We do quite a bit of them at that point, so that's up by $1,000. The cleaning, repair, and maintenance supplies, as you know, the middle school is an older building. We do what we can to deal with the issues of what an older building brings. So if that has to do with adding more mats for the hallways and things like that to make it aesthetically pleasing. Our phones break on a daily basis. I'm not talking about the system itself. I'm talking about the phones that hang on the wall, and those things need to be replaced, as well as what Mr. Brown was talking about with the band, the instruments that we have, as well as science equipment repairs, recalibration of microscopes, things of that nature, okay? The $175 is just for Music Education Association dues and things like that to make us part of that consortium. And then we have the general supplies and books. We're really looking to increase the rigor, so we're looking for more options for classrooms and things like that with novels for kids to read, not their regular classroom-related novels that they're all reading together, but individual novels for classroom libraries and things like that. So that's where we are. Any questions?
I have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
Over here.
Oh, I need
back.
dark contacts.
First of all, I didn't see any need or request for any staffing. What are your class sizes right now at the middle school?
It depends. We have some that are on the larger level in the social studies and science at 26, but Dr. Labby is, and Ms. Reese
That's
are
going to be in
doing-
Mrs. Reese's personnel budget presentation in a couple of meetings.
Okay, I was asking about that. And do you need any staffing? I know that probably is going to be a personnel question again also.
Definitely personnel question. I could always use more
And
staff.
it's a question, Mr. Bisciotti, you never ask principals, because they'll tell you, yes, yes, yes.
Well,
Well, I could, we can, the lower the class size, the better things are, so, but it comes down to district need. I mean, I would love to lower class size further, so as you guys are doing the personnel piece, when you take a look at that, that's important. In terms of adding new positions for new classes, that we can deal with the existing staff we have in terms of we're doing the related arts piece and moving some things around with specials, but I was able to take what we had and repurpose and reposition and things like that, so there we're good.
you mentioned social studies at 26. How about our English, our math classes, our science classes? What's the usual numbers in those 3?
It depends on level. There are, and it depends on where things fall. It can be anywhere from, I want to say 21 to 26.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else?
Okay, thank you.
I want to highlight one thing that I loved, that Mrs. Jakubik said. Increase the rigor. I love it. and they are working very hard to do that here as an administrative group and as a faculty. We're very fortunate to have the group of administrators we have in this district. As you can see, Mrs. Jakubik, Mr. Brown, they're exceptional professionals and fantastic leaders. They do a lot of collaboration, obviously with the middle school and high school. But speaking of collaboration, we have a professional learning community within our administrative ranks. Our elementary principals and our upper elementary principal do an incredible amount of collaboration. They work very closely with one another for obvious reasons. And I'm very proud to have them here tonight to talk to you about a composite elementary school proposed 2016-17 discretionary supply budget. So I give you Mr. Preston, Mr. Byrne, and Ms. Marr.
Thank you, Dr. Labby. Good evening. I'm Bob Preston from Arleth Elementary, and we have Stacy from the upper elementary and Mr. Byrne from Truman. Unfortunately, we don't have Mr. Aguilas with us tonight, and Mrs. Davis from Wilson also was not able to make it. But we took a look at our enrollment as the first need. Taking a look across the board, we just projected our numbers across, kept kindergarten fairly flat, to take a look at what we're expecting for enrollment for 2016-17. And we're looking at overall an increase of students across the board, so we're planning our budget accordingly with some more students overall. The budget summary, for the most part, we're trying to focus on a couple main areas. In supplies and materials, that's the nursing supplies and materials. We're trying to keep it relatively flat, but again, a little increase due to the increased enrollment and some expenses that go up. For library supplies, this is where you're going to see a bigger increase. We are all putting money into the library as part of our literacy initiative, also with the increased enrollment, but we want to purchase new books. We want to make new titles in there so that kids are excited about reading. So we're supporting that initiative with the library. The rentals, you will see a overall decrease thanks to some new contracts that came through from Amidio, and we're able to see a savings there. The administrative supplies, a little bit of an increase, about $5,700, again, mainly due to increased enrollment, but again, some other materials for character ed program and stuff like that is built in there. For cleaning, repair, maintenance, and services, that's again the copy machines and the contracts that we have. A little bit of an increase there, but not a whole lot. Our main increases you're going to see in general supplies and textbooks. Again, this is focused on one main area, and it's literacy. We're looking at improving literacy to get all of our students reading at a higher level earlier. This will help Stacy up at the UES if we could get it across the board. So the general supplies, we're looking at some leveled libraries, or continue to support our leveled libraries in each of the classrooms. We're looking at bringing in novels for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. We're looking at a textbook series, to support the district initiative to integrate social studies into language arts. So we have leveled guided readers that integrate social studies into the language arts program. So those are the things that we're looking at doing. Again, the main focus is literacy, and we think this budget is a very focused budget. It's done collaboratively, and hopefully it's for the best of the students. Any questions?
Mr. Preston, I have a couple for you, of
Hello
course. The consumables with our reading program, is that increased?
Yeah, we've decreased the consumables in the reading program. We're looking at buying more leveled readers, or so more books for them to have in classroom libraries, but they're not consumable materials. We're actually, the focus is on books to read.
No, I was referring to the reading program, like when the student reads a story and then they have to answer the questions and all that. Excuse me, that was an incurring cost that kept on increasing every year with that program. The reason I asked this, you mentioned technology, and it's one of the things of the future here, and it's always increasing.
is there any way of using technology to cut down on the consumables for our reading program?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of this budget is consumables. Again, it's mainly books, it's not the consumables. We are doing a lot more on the Chromebooks, a lot more on the iPad, so the technology is being infused into the program. A lot of students teachers are using the Google Classroom for the students to write about. And the online magazines, we're getting a lot more e-readers and subscriptions to online resources. So I believe this budget is built not with consumables in there. We've been dropping the consumables over the last couple of years.
As a principal in a K-3 and also for the K-5s, have you seen a significant improvement with the reading and the literacy and retaining of knowledge by our students?
I think overall that we're saying yes. We've been putting a major emphasis on that by tracking the students and looking at the DRA levels and really focusing our instruction in certain areas. We're really able to aim our instruction and improve the literacy with focused, intense instruction. Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. And Board of Education members, as you know, one of my goals this year is for me to communicate more effectively with our staff. And one of the ways that I'm doing that is by visiting our schools during faculty meetings. And I've had the opportunity now to visit 4 schools during the faculty meetings, happens to be our elementary schools. And overwhelmingly, the questions that I get, the concerns that I get from staff are, number 1, the overcrowding, which was addressed right now by our principals. Number 2, technology. They recognize the benefit of the software that we're purchasing, but they need more one-to-one devices. Right now, we have approximately a 2-to-1 ratio, meaning we have about 2 students to every 1 device. And one of the things that they're telling me they need, not only our building principals, but our teachers, is they need more devices. The days that they want to use IXL Math, or ST Math, or RAS Kids, unfortunately, some of those Chromebooks might be signed out by another teacher, and they have to augment their plans. They're also asking questions about literacy, particularly at the younger grades, in terms of getting more formalized programs, not consumable programs, formal programs, so that we can provide good reading instruction, good phonics instruction, good fluency development programs, and so forth, to support our early learning readers. And then finally, they're talking about behavior. There's been an increase in some behavioral challenges within our schools, and we've been talking a lot about using positive behavioral supports, looking for a character education program to support our elementary schools so that we can shape and modify behavior. So I thank our principals for resonating what I've been hearing in those faculty meetings from our teachers. Great job, guys. Thank you guys very much.
The next thing on the agenda is the minutes, but I don't believe the minutes were posted on the portal. Several of us didn't see them. So we may want to table this.
Let's tell you, if they weren't posted, I'll have to check with my secretary.
Did anybody see them on the portal? Okay, can I
No,
take a
didn't realize
motion?
until now, but they're not there.
Yeah, can I take a motion to table that?
I'll take a motion to table the minutes.
Do we need to do that, just pull it?
Just withdraw.
All right, we'll just withdraw it then. Okay.
It's fine.
Sorry about that. All right, Dr. Labby, can you take us through your report unless Ms. Bacco wants to read the highlights again?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, if I can direct your attention now to the Vision 2030 Finance and Infrastructure section of the Superintendent's Report. First of all, we're asking you to approve a contract with the Newark Board of Education. We have a particular child in the district. This is through the Educational Stability Act. It is a revenue, by the way. We are not paying Newark, they are paying us. Number 2, we're asking you to approve a contract with GMC Environmental Consultants. We have some work to be done over at the Truman School. You can find that on page 2. Number 3, we're asking you to approve a vendor to provide ACT prep classes on the dates provided to you. You can find that as well on page 2. Number 5, we're asking you to approve the transportation of students to several Sayreville Middle School Winter Guard competitions. As you know, our band is outstanding, but our Winter Guard is exceptional as well, and they're going to be competing. We're asking you to approve those competitions. You can find that as well on page 3. Number 6, as well on page 3, we have several other student trips with transportation costs. And finally, number 7, we're asking you to approve 2 private out-of-district tuitions for students with disabilities, as well as some bedside instruction, and for another student that is out of district to receive occupational therapy services. Are there any questions on Vision 2030 finance and infrastructure? Student achievement, we're asking you to approve a date change in the second marking period. We're asking you to extend it by 1 day. You can find that on page 4. We are going to be sending out report cards on the same date, correct, Dr. Shediak? So we're changing the marking period date, but report cards will be populated in the portal and emailed home, thank you, Mr. Glock-Malloy, on the date that was provided. And I believe that is at February 12th. Thank you. Number 2, which can be found on pages 4 through 6, we're asking you to approve participation of the middle school and high school students in the Middlesex County Arts middle and high school programs. Number 3, on page 6, we're asking you to approve an additional 30 11th grade students from the high school to join a trip that was previously approved during the last Board of Education meeting to Bishop R for the Career Council Fair, College Fair, I should say, Career Council College Fair. And numbers 4 and 5, also on page 6, we're asking you to approve 2 co-curricular activities. Any questions on student achievement?
Mr. DeAndrea, I need to abstain on item 2. I'm president of the Arts and Education Center.
I already have.
Thank you.
Governance, we're asking you to approve the December and January HIB reports, as well as all of the recommendations for action that were provided to you on the portal confidentially. And that can be found on pages 6 and 7. Any questions on governance? Personnel, items number 1 through 3, we're asking you to accept 3 resignations. Our middle school spring track coach, bus aide, as well as 2 co-op students. Numbers 4 and 5, which can be found on page 8, we have several leaves of absence for 2015-16, and we have a leave of absence request for 16-17. Number 6, which can be found on page 9, we're asking you to revise the employment dates for a replacement school psychologist at the preschool Project Before program, as well as we're asking you to approve the hiring of a kindergarten teacher, a replacement kindergarten teacher, and of course that is on page 9. Number 7, which also is on page 9, we're asking you to approve the hiring of 3 custodians. Number 8, we're asking you to approve the hiring of 3 high school spring track assistant coaches. You can find that on page 9. And number 10, we're asking you to approve the hiring of 10 certified substitutes for this school year. And that can be found on page 10. Numbers 11 and 12, which can be found on pages 10 and 11. We're asking you to approve several teachers for both the general education side of the Literacy Academy and the special education side of the Literacy Academy. As you all know, in all of our elementary schools and in our middle school, we have a Literacy Academy so that we can work on developing the literacy skills of all of our kids that experience challenges in that area. We need many teachers to do that because we have many students that need that assistance. Both in general education and in special education. And it's a program that I'm proud to say that is moving along quite well. Number 13, we're asking you to approve the employment of 15 teachers to work in the Math Academy, which obviously, naturally, is similar to the Literacy Academy. Again, we're providing opportunities for our kids to get additional instruction, targeted, intense instruction. We call it Tier 2 instruction before school. And this, of course, is for math in the Math Academy. We're hoping to spread that district-wide as well. Number 14, we have several teachers that we want you to approve for curriculum writing. and that's for the 16-17 school year. You can find that on page 12. And of course, as we always do, item number 15 on pages 12 and 13, we have several professional days for you to approve. Any questions on Vision 2030 personnel?
Dr. Labby, on the curriculum writing, if we're starting this now, when are we going to require these to be turned in so that they can be approved and back to the staff in a reasonable amount of time?
Dr. Shediac?
We're looking to get as many as we can approved by the middle of July.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
This time, if there's no other questions from the board on the superintendent's report, I will open up to the public for any comments or questions on the agenda items only. I will open up again to the public for any business may be able to come before this board. So if anybody have any questions or comments on the agenda items, please come up. Seeing none, I'll close the public portion for the agenda items. I'll entertain a motion to accept and file the superintendent's report.
So moved. Second the motion.
I got a motion, a second. Can I please get a roll call?
Actually,
vote?
I can't second, I'm abstaining on an item, sorry.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. Pinto will second.
Mrs. DePinto.
DePinto, thank you. Roll call.
Yes.
Mr. Bowker.
Yes.
Mrs. Backer.
Yes.
Mr. Bashada.
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom.
Yes.
Mr. Syak.
Yes, with the abstention noted.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. McEnroe.
Yes. Superintendent's report approved. Vision 2030 Finance and Infrastructure.
No
You guys
meeting,
meet? Okay. Student achievement. Mrs. Bacco, can you give us a short synopsis?
Sure.
On the last meeting?
As of January 26th, there are a total of 18 grade 12 students who still need to meet a testing graduation requirement. This number is down from 150 that was in September. The looping is still going well. There's plans to go district-wide next year. There is now a TAG committee that's examining the criteria for the program and modifications to be made. The committee for the middle school specials have met, and they've developed some recommendations for new classes, and they're going to be, the specials are going to be for sixth grade, dramatic arts, music, Spanish, technology, and the band students will still take band. For seventh grade, the classes are going to be Spanish, music, 21st century skills, and STEM. For eighth grade, it's going to be art, multicultures, Spanish, and technology. And this is going to be done on a modified A-B block scheduling. For the high school block scheduling committee is still meeting, and at the next meeting, they should have some mock-up schedules to go through. The TAG committee is going to meet. The elementary report card committee met, and that's moving forward for K through 2 for the 16-17 school year. And the one other thing, we talked about the ACT class that was on the agenda tonight, and there were some concerns about the change in the kindergarten date, so it was recommended that for anyone born in the month of October, that those students be given a kindergarten readiness test, and that would be for just this transition year, and the committee didn't have any problem with it. So I don't know if anybody else wants to discuss that. Does anybody have any issues with doing that?
I don't I just, my question would be from a policy perspective, do we have the flexibility within our existing policy to do that, or do we need to modify for the 1 year?
I believe within the policy we do, but we can certainly discuss. I know we're going to have another policy committee meeting or governance committee meeting soon, so we can discuss it.
I think we need to
believe
review
do.
it again, just to make sure it gives us the latitude.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about that. I mean, because we're making this change midway through the year, there were parents that were planning on that, so I think that it's only fair for those kids that were caught in between to provide them an opportunity with the readiness test.
That
But
sounds like a good bridge.
let's look at that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Matt, I've got some other questions on student achievement.
Sure, go ahead.
With regard to the AB block, I've got a lot of questions. And I'm starting to hear some concerns regarding the AB block, so I just want to make sure I understand it and understand what we're trying to do. What was the overall objective? Why did we go with the AB block? And their specials and everything else? What were we trying to accomplish?
It was a twofold purpose. One purpose was that we felt We looked at some of the related arts courses that were being offered, and we felt that they needed some change, some updating.
Okay.
Okay? We want to get in more technology, a STEM class, and so on. One of the reasons for going and with the AB block and also making some of the changes is the students who currently take band do not receive any other specials except for a quarter of Spanish. Okay? They don't take LAL Tech, they don't take multicultures, they don't take anything else other than band because it's 5 days a week. Okay, so we want to afford them the opportunity to still do band as a full-year course, but we really have an obligation to offer them other opportunities to explore other areas too.
And that was some of the pushback that, or I shouldn't say pushback, that was some of the concern that I heard, that we're going to affect the overall quality of the band by limiting the number of days that they can take it. So now at least I understand the rationale why we're trying to expose them to a
Right.
more diverse curriculum, especially at a young age.
At a young age, right, because if they take band, they're not taking in any technology, they're not doing, one of the new courses we're going to offer is 21st century skills, a STEM course, and so on. So we have an obligation really to give them some exposure to some of the other courses.
Karen, I think what the block scheduling does give you more scheduling flexibility. I don't think they lose a lot more contact time with the AB. We try to give them the same amount of contact band time. It just gives you more flexibility to do other things.
Well, I'm not getting that from this proposal. Are we expanding the period so they get the same amount of time, or?
As it stands right now, we are not expanding the periods. They will be
But-
meeting for shorter amounts of time. However, right
But it's
now,
not significant.
the way it's currently set up, they meet, the entire band meets, it's about 138 students in one class with 2 to 3 teachers, okay? That will-
Altogether?
Yes. Okay. So this will be smaller groups, and we're going to work to make sure that the groups are integrated so that they have enough of the various instruments to get the feel of the whole.
So you're getting more
So-
contact time.
Right,
Right,
right.
so we're-
They'll be getting more contact. It'll be, you know.
So we're compromising on the amount of time, trying to enhance the quality of time by a
Correct.
smaller class size?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So it's a lot of different factors that are coming into play here right now with that.
All right, now what is the timeline for this? This will be going live in September?
That is the plan.
And
Yes.
when will the board get the revised curricula associated with all of this? Is that going to be in the same time frame that Mrs. Bloom had
We have to
indicated?
post for it, and we will, yes, we are planning to have it ready by then. Some of the courses are staying the same. At this point, you know, we're still considering altering some of the courses, but there's only so much we can do in 1 year's time and do it effectively. So the new courses, we will have the curriculum ready before the school year begins.
Okay. Now, on the STEM course.
Yes.
What made us to go with a dedicated course versus a cross-curricular implementation? Did we look at the two options? And as a follow-up question to that, did we ever look at HOPATCON? Because they've got an iSTEAM, which also includes the arts
Right.
initiative that is doing exceptionally well. I was on an iSTEAM committee at the state level, and actually, it wasn't someone from HOPATCON, but it was a member of PSA that had highlighted HOPATCON as one of the districts to look at.
Well, we are not abandoning the idea of integrating STEM or STEAM throughout all of the curricular areas, but we would like to, in addition to that, we would like to have one course that is dedicated to that for the students at the middle school. It would be, I think it's in 7th grade, if I'm not mistaken, that's where we're proposing that right now. But we do want to integrate the idea of STEM, STEAM, or iSTEAM throughout all of the curricula.
So this is almost being done as an introductory course, I guess, to try to
Correct.
generate, again, the
Correct.
interest.
Right.
And possibly spark
Right,
a more diverse curricular learning as they
Right.
move towards the high school level.
Right.
You're exposing more students to that.
right. This
Okay.
way it's a dedicated curriculum in one particular course, and we think it'll really generate a lot of interest on the part of the students.
Now, I also saw in the report a possibility of an enrichment period for
Yes.
1 day a week. Is that just a possibility, or is that what we're doing, and what does that look like, and how does that work?
It's still, I mean, there's a lot of changes for 1 year.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
Right. It's still proposed. We have to, our students have to have 150 minutes per week of health and phys ed. Okay? At the middle school level, we can accomplish that in 4 days.
Okay.
Currently, we have 5 days dedicated to that. So Dr. Labby would like us to have some type of enrichment period wherever we can. So we thought that we could look at that 5th day. Instead of a 5th day of health phys ed, that it be some type of an enrichment program.
Enrichment slash supplemental type
Supplemental.
instruction.
So how would that work? Let's assume we have the additional day. What would that class look like? How does that?
We're working on that. It may be something where we have this wonderful program, iReady, in the language arts that the students work on in their language arts class, but they really don't. It's individualized to each student. It's computer-based. They don't really get enough time all the time to work on it, so we're looking at that possibly being a part of it. Maybe students who need extra help. You know, we have this literacy academy and this math academy before school. Well, maybe we can do some more of that type of stuff during the school day. That could be that one period per week.
And if I might just jump in, the hard part, I mean, we have a pretty good turnout of kids at the elementary school to come before school for tutoring, but it's harder to get middle school students to come before school or to stay after school. So providing something during the day, particularly for those kids that can't come before or after school, I think is essential.
And I guess, I mean, to me, that, offering the period is the simple part. It's how do you come up with a diverse curriculum
Right.
that meets the individual needs of the students who need specific pieces of
Right,
enrichment?
Right, and
And
that.
the scheduling that goes along with that, and,
Right, and will that definitely happen in 16, 17? We would like it to, but we have to see, because there is a lot of work to that.
I would rather
To
do it
right,
well
right,
than just, throw it out there.
Right, and that is our plan with that. We do want to do it well, and that's why we're not changing all of the related arts courses. We're going to keep some of them the same at first. We're going to make a couple changes initially, and we're going to work our way into this, and like you said, we're going to try to do it thoughtfully, deliberately, and do it well, so it best serves our students.
Okay, and then the last question I had, the looping, we said it was going well. What are the indicators of success that we're basing the fact that it's going well on? What did we base that?
Well, at this point, we're basing it on feedback that we're getting from the teachers who are involved in it and from the principals. We are going to have a meeting upcoming later on this month with the kindergarten and first grade teachers, and we do want to have a dialogue. We're hoping that the teachers that are participating in it now will share with the other teachers their experiences, and that we'll really start to take a hard look at things. We are going to be looking at the data from the quarterly assessments, the second quarter assessments of the first grade students, and see if we can, it's a little hard.
It's hard in a short amount of time.
Right, and it's hard to make the correlation, well, are these students doing well because they looped or not? But, it's something that we can begin to look at. And at this point, a lot of it's going to be anecdotal from the teachers
Which has
right
been very
now.
positive.
Right, which that has been positive. But we are looking for some hard data, and we're working on ways to come up with.
Have we gotten any parent feedback at all on the looping, or has it just been kind of, it's working and quiet and,
Yeah.
okay?
We haven't received much of any feedback from parents, be it negative or positive.
Okay.
So,
That's usually,
So that's a good
I was going to say,
sign.
that's usually a good sign.
Right.
That means that it's working well and just moving forward.
Right.
But again, having the faculty support behind it and their recommendation is very powerful in
Right.
terms, at least, especially at this stage right now, where we really don't have the data to back it up.
right, and actually, I can tell you that when the executive county superintendent came in for the CUSAC visit, that one of the classes she happened to visit was a looping class, and she was totally amazed by the level of work and the discussion that was going on in this classroom. And she was very enthusiastic about the idea that we were looping,
Good.
the executive county superintendent. So,
All right, thank you for that. That's all I have.
Good questions, thank you. Well, I got you, governance, anything happen? I guess Susan have.
The updated policy manual has been posted on the portal, which includes all the
That's what it was,
policies that
okay.
we've changed. So that is now up for everyone to view. And the governance committee will be meeting in the next week or so to review the kindergarten policy as well as the drug policy.
How often is governance meeting?
Once every 2 months, basically as needed.
Okay. Okay. Personnel, do you have a meeting?
We did have a meeting today. The committee discussed salary adjustments for some of the staff, as well as we'll be setting up a link to get forms for the FMLA on the website, and our nurses are getting ready for kindergarten registration.
Excellent. I just want to, under the committee, Mrs. Bloom, Blue Ribbon Committee.
Yes, sir.
I think we need to start taking a look at probably having the first meeting, what information we may need to have at that meeting, how we're going to advertise it as far as getting some people from the public to get involved. Maybe if you can look at some dates, because I know this is a meeting, a committee that we just put together that doesn't have a scheduled meeting date, and try to do that with deconflicting with other meetings and committees.
Okay, I'll reach out to the other members of the committee. Do you have a direction that you want us to go in, any particular
I think we need to, before we
key
have a
point, or
meeting
just
with the
keep it
public.
open until we decide how we're going to pull together the members from
Yeah,
outside?
I think what we need first to do is see what our options are before we have a meeting with the public and start, what are the options that we have to address overcrowding?
Okay.
And we've done some of that legwork. Kevin has some knowledge about what happened with Olive. We know when we did a little redistricting kabuki dance a couple of years ago, we got some information about that. Look at the options. What are the viable options? Building a new building, expanding the existing building, using Clover, and what are those cost things are, and the BA can help us with that. Dr. Alabi certainly can help that. I think just to have a strategy would be the first thing that we need to do.
I also think we need to, the board needs to approve a charge for that committee, given
Right.
the fact it's not just us.
Right.
So if you can make, perhaps with the committee, draft a proposed charge for us to discuss at the next meeting.
Very good. Okay. Under discussion, I have one item. I received a letter from the American Legion, Mr. Kamusky, and he's asking, the American Legion is a veterans group in town, which I'm a member of, and they do a lot of community service within the town, and it's a very viable organization here in Sayreville. And every year, they have something called Boy State and Girl State programs, where they come into the high school, the kids compete, they go before a board, and they're selected, and Kevin can talk a lot more knowledgeable about that, because not only does he sit on the board for the selection committee, he is a student, had benefited from that program himself. And what the American Legion is asking us is that if we were willing as a school district to sponsor a boy student to Boy State and a girl student for Girl State, and I believe the cost for the boy was $250 and the girl was $220, which is a total of $470. And the whole Boy State program is where it's conducted at, I think, is it Ryder?
Ryder for the boys, Georgian Court for the
Down
girls.
in Lakewood for the girls. So it's a little different in cost because of the facilities.
They
that
keep them
use.
separate.
Right, they keep them separate. And it's all to introduce them to civics. I know there's been a lot of talk about civics where they have mock positions and they run for elections and they're exposed to different speakers and different presentations about that. And I think this is a good cause and money well spent. So he asked me in a letter if I would bring this to the attention of the board and see if the district is willing to sponsor. I don't think we have done this in the past. I know there are other community, members of the community and organizations and businesses that sponsor these young men and women to these organizations, but just want to throw it out there for board discussion if anybody has any objection to us spending a very small amount of money for two of our students to attend, what I would call a superb program. And I think this is during the summer, too, isn't it? It's conducted during the summer months?
Yeah, it's Father's Day week, and then Girls State is the following.
Okay.
I'll make the motion
To
to
sponsor.
support a boy, to fund or sponsor a boy and a girl to Boy State and Girls
At a
State
total of
respectively.
$470.
$470.
And do I have a second for that?
Second.
Okay. Can I get a roll call vote for the
Sorry,
school
who's the
district?
second? I know we came up.
Mr. Walsh. For the school district to sponsor a candidate to Boy State and a candidate to Girl State?
I'll get the information.
Okay.
Mr. Balker?
Yes.
Mrs. Backo?
Yes.
Mr. Bashala?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Sire?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. McEnroe?
Yes. And if you could relate that to Mr. Kamusky, that
Yes.
we were very successful, and to thank him for asking us that. Anybody have anything else for discussion before I open it up to the public?
I don't know if this is for discussion, Mr. McEnroe.
Throw it out there.
When my husband picked up my grandson at school today, he informed me that the American flag and the MIA flag up at Truman School are in tatters. He was very upset as a veteran. I said, I'll tell Mr. McEnon because
Well, I
as a
know
veteran,
that,
he'll
I
be
know that
upset
Mr.
too.
DeAndrea is not going to look at me right now, or Dr. Labby, because this has been one of my pet peeves as I go around town. I actually had to take the flag down myself in front of Slover because of its condition.
I remember that.
And I again want to ask Superintendent if we can make sure that the building
They're
custodians,
supposed, they've been told.
every day, somebody puts an eye on the flag and say, ooh, that's half is missing, maybe I should take it down. I'd rather them take it down and not fly one than to fly one that's in tatters. I mean, that's
Totally agree.
something that's of personal and professional concern of mine. So
We're
can we
sorry.
fix that problem?
We'll take care of it.
If you need flags, I'll get you flags.
No, we got flags.
Okay.
We
But-
ordered them. They're in stock.
Okay, somebody needs, especially in this town, okay? I mean, it's just, I can't defend it at the Legion or the VFW when they ask me these questions. So I
Understood.
appreciate that we can, thank you, Mrs. Bloom.
Thank
That
you,
is
Mr.
certainly a topic
McEnon.
for discussion. Mrs. Badko.
Yes. As a follow-up to our last Health Committee meeting, I'd like to ask that we put out an RFP for a broker, for a health benefits broker. Anybody have any objections to doing that?
Anybody have any objections? Seeing none? Anything else for discussion? If not, I'd like to open up for the public for any business may come before this board. If you have any concerns, questions about anything that we can help you with, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Okay, so I will close the public portion, and I will adjourn this meeting. Our next meeting is February 16th, 2016, same time, same location.